prefer the Thompson.
Alright guys, so I think it's time that I do an actual gear/software video for you. Now the coolest thing about flight simulators like Flight Simulator 2020 and X-Plane is you can have as complex a setup or as simple of a setup as you'd like. I mean, you could use a keyboard and mouse if you're an absolute psychopath, but really all you need to get started is one of these, a controller. Now this is a Xbox controller that's designed to look like the old school Duke, but yeah, typically an Xbox controller is going to be your best bet, especially being as Microsoft Flight Simulator is on Xbox. But if I remember correctly, any of them should work. And you can genuinely have a decent experience flying with a controller. I did it for years back in the Flight Simulator 10 days. Simple, easy, and a great way to get into Flight Sim. But let's say you want to go down the rabbit hole just a little bit further. Well, that's where joysticks come in. Now, I've had dozens of joysticks over the years. I had the Microsoft Sidewinder when I was a kid. I had the Thrustmaster T-Flight one, and the Cytec X52. But the one I'm rocking now, there is a new one coming, but it's going to get its own video. But the one I'm currently using is the Logitech X56. Now, this configuration is what's known as a HOTAS, or hands-on throttle and stick. And this one is designed to look like the F-18. Now this thing has a lot of inputs, and the idea is you would bind any of these switches, rotaries, dials, sliders, axes, whatever, to whatever you want in the game. You want your throttle like this? Sure, do it. You want this to be your battery switch? Do it. You want this to be your APU start? Do it. You can configure it to whatever you like, and you can twist for your rudder. Now, primarily, I use this for fighter jets in Flight Simulator and DCS World, but you can use these for really anything. 737, Airbus. Now again, you don't need this to get started, but does it give you the emotional response of flying a fighter jet? Yup! Okay, further down the rabbit hole. So let's say I'm flying a Boeing 737, or a Cessna, or, some other single-engine prop. Well, that's what I bust these out for. The Honeycomb Alpha yoke, and the Honeycomb Bravo throttle quadrant. Now, I absolutely love these things. You'll notice I have some panels on top of these. We'll get to those in a minute. The yoke itself is pretty straightforward, but the real magic, I think, is the Honeycomb Bravo throttle. You'll notice I don't have any levers on here. It's got 6 levers, and on these you can put whatever you want. So if you want to fly an Airbus, you attach the Airbus handles. And you even got the reversers, flaps, or you can use this for flaps if you're flying a Cessna. Got your landing gear here, more switches, and an autopilot panel, all in one unit. Even more further, on top of the yoke, I have 3 Logitech FIP gauges or flight instrument panels, and you can have these display whatever gauge, display, whatever you want on them. And on top of the yoke, I've got my radio panel for when I'm flying on VATSIM. In case you can't tell, I need a lot of USB ports. So that's pretty intense, right? Well, that about wraps it up with the further. Mounted on my desk are my Logitech multi-panel and Logitech switch panel. Oh, and if you don't like twisting the joystick for rudder, well, that's why you have the Logitech rudder pedals. And again, everything I have that has buttons or keys, dials, slides, axes, whatever, I can bind to whatever I want in whatever simulator I'm playing in. Now you're probably wondering if that gets complicated. And to that I say, kinda. Let's go over to the software side. Okay, software. So this is SPAD.next, and it is integral into doing everything that I do in flight simulators. Basically, you can create profiles for individual aircraft like I have here. Like I have a 737 profile, general profile for stuff I haven't set up yet. And it can take a little bit to set everything up, but once you have it set up, it's great. And basically what that lets you do, for example, is if I go to this Pro Switch panel here, and I click on this button, when it's on, it sends battery and ground power switch on, and off it does the opposite. For APU start, I have the alternator switch selected, so battery / ground power APU. Avionics master sets both INS units to align. Now let's say I switch to the DC Designs Concorde profile, go back to that. And you can see for the Concorde, the battery switch does master battery,
Alternator toggles external power. Avionics master sets avionics master. Pretty standard. Fuel turns on the fuel idle cutoff. Now I can do that for literally every single button, every single switch that registers. And the other neat thing is you can run an event scanner basically. So when you change something in the simulator, it'll show you what changed so you know what variable to set your switches to. It can be very complicated, but once you kind of know what you're doing, it's awesome. Like on the 737, we go back to that profile. You can see that on my autopilot panel here, I have this set to move the EFIS range up and down, and this controls panel brightness. You'll also see that nav is, I have set to VOR localizer because I use the nav switch on the throttle quadrant as LNAV. Yeah, you can do that with pretty much everything, and then that's how I configure my FIP gauges, and you can even use a Stream Deck if you're crazy enough. But yeah, I mean, this is kind of what I do to set everything up for the different airplanes, and it makes things, it adds a lot of functionality to the Logitech panels, especially considering they are locked down to what they come with in the box, unless you use the software. So, very handy. But hey guys, yeah, I thought I'd do a quick video on the gear and software I use to make all the flight simulator stuff work. Try to keep it short. If you guys want to know more about anything specific, let me know in the comments and I'll try and help you out. But yeah, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Don't forget to like, subscribe, leave a comment, dislike it if you hated it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.